curiosity is a big driver for us, right? Go to something that you think is lateral to your everyday, right? And maybe that's where you get the skill sets, even in the cooking class, right? Um, Maybe that skill sets are more grown outside our workplace, and then we bring them into
Gaston, welcome to the Data Bytes podcast. Appreciate you making the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So for those who are listening and not watching on YouTube, Gaston has a really great sweatshirt, PepsiCo sweatshirt on right now, and I love it so much. I'm hoping to get one myself. I already made a deal that I'm going to exchange a Women in Data sweatshirt for a PepsiCo sweatshirt. So I'm hoping that we get the opportunity to meet here in person soon.
We will do that.
Yes. So currently, you serve as the VP and head of global data science at PepsiCo, which this is just right up our alley for our audience, being in the data science space, but also on a brand as well known as PepsiCo. I think you guys probably have one of the highest brand recognitions that there are as brands. So how did you get into this position? What does your career journey look like so far?
So I have a diverse career, right? For me, starting in economics, microeconometrics, quant finance, and then entering through net revenue management into what we call now data science. So I before coming to PepsiCo, I had an experience as a university professor, a little bit of research on the side, a historic consultant. I was working in a consulting firm focusing on supply chain and operations problems. And then I had the opportunity to, as the strategy and transformation team in PepsiCo was being formed, to be part of the chief data and analytics office to build the data science team. So I started as an economist. I come from Argentina. One of the drivers for us to study economics is, what's happening with economy, right? But I always loved math, solving problems, understanding problems, and see how to find solutions, especially connected to business problems. And then, the career path that sometimes look erratic or just by chance took me to a place where my first data-driven project was in middle school to do the PepsiCo challenge. So actually coming to PepsiCo for me was kind of a close circle from where starting analyzing data back when I was 11 years old. So for me, it's a great thing being here. Plus, if you allow me, now my kids know what they do. They relate that, and if you allow me, connect a Pepsi product, they say, "Daddy works," soda, chips, and another brands, of course, right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Working for PepsiCo, do they try and get more, more soda, more pops because of this, or what's their stance? Are they trying to use this against you in any way?
And to be fair, when we go out for having dinner or some places, they try to identify they have our products. If not, in case of soda, they say that we are having water. Right? So they're really engaged. When they go to the store, to the supermarket, try to see where the products are, have some opinions on that. So for me, it's enriching where I spend a lot of time. My family knows what I do and give me feedback, on what we end up doing.
So I have to ask, an economics background, I think, and everyone can see the relationships between data science and economics. However, for a lot of individuals, they do still feel like there is a transition in careers, right? From whether you're a math major, a statistics major, an economist, build those additional skills to fully transition into the field of data science. When was that first kind of aha moment that you knew you wanted to go more of the data science direction? And what did that transition look like for you?
Yeah. So I started with no data problems to solve. You try to modelize relationship with enterprises, in market, microstructure of markets, optimal reaction to another actor doing a decision. So for me, it has been always trying to understand decision making, and by that, even though you need to understand, the problem that you want to solve, that means the functional use case that you want to solve, but then you need to know how to prototype, right? And that's where, you are driven to quantitative methods, right? To try to solve that. But that doesn't stop there, because if you actually are into a good hypothesis, the data, you need to, find it, sort it, check the quality, check the context, check the availability over time, check, the change regimen that data has. And then you want to put that into production, because you want that analytical component connected to a business process with a user who wants to use it. So as much you want to big your scope from the discovery phase to actually serving something, you need to expand your methodology into not just methodology, the technology aspect also. So I think it drives you, that curiosity of, doing your work better and moving forward, takes you to, expand your knowledge base, by trial and error. Just to be, we are not born like this. We are, we are in the mate always, that's why I like this field.
Yes, I tell anyone who wants to get into this field, I hope that you're a lifelong learner and stay very curious, because every week, especially right now, I mean, in this AI renaissance that we're having, every week there is something new coming out, right? So if you are someone who just wants to learn, get your degree, and then be done and work your career, this I would say is not the field for you. You have to have that curiosity, as you mentioned. And I think we're seeing that a lot with organizations too. Not only as an individual do we have to keep learning and growing and transforming, but also businesses, right? So PepsiCo has been around for more than 50 years, I believe, and is also going through major transformations as well. How do you define digital transformation, and what does that look like today at PepsiCo?
PepsiCo is a very successful company, right? And its ambition is to transform itself into an intelligent company. That means, apart from rethinking business processes, start to include data and data-driven capabilities to move from reactive to proactive, whatever that means in each particular context, right? That is the, let's call it, driver of what we call the digital transformation. We call it digital because there's a technology and a data enablement story, but it's a transformation. And the transformation, as you know perfectly, is driven by processes and people, right? And that's what our digital transformation started 3 years ago, right? It's called digital, but in the end, it's a company trying to be more proactive in the way we operate.
I think that's a great simple definition, because it's something we all can relate to as an individual. I love to bring things down to an individual aspect, right? There's things in my life that have happened to me and I did not respond the best, and I was very much in a reactive state, right? I think even as an individual, I want to be in a more proactive state, more of a very, understanding what's coming to me and flowing to me. And I've never heard someone use that for digital transformation, right? To move into that proactive, understand what your customers and consumers want, maybe before they're even know to ask that. So one of the things I know you guys have done is create these digital hubs to support this transformation. Can you tell me a little bit more about what these look like and why you felt the need to create an actual physical location for it?
Of course. So, as you know, the digital transformation is a multi-year journey, right? Because it has to be deployed in many market units, continue improving and have a true impact on the planning and execution that every unit does, right? That invites you to have a centralized, let's call it, workforce with a good balance between, make, buy, internal talent, external talent, but it has to have that muscle to be a driving force from a delivery perspective. That need invite us to localize this talent in particular locations, right? So I'm going to talk about Barcelona, for example. So we have a digital hub in Barcelona. It is not a digital lab. It's a digital hub. the digital transformation serves the business. The talent working in the digital transformation is at the service of the business. So we are highly connected to delivery. So the digital hubs, if you want to do delivery, you also need to take care of the talent. As you know, we are part of that talent pool. The digital talent is a nomad, not only on countries, but on experiences, right? And sometimes takes experience for a company and then fulfills that experience in another company. So the natural, what people call natural rotation is a 2-3 years at best, depending on the company, the job family, the location and all that. So for us is the digital hubs are the powerhouse of the talent to deliver the digital transformation in the different, aspects. And we need to take care of that, right? So it's both delivery and talent. And the need to be close to the business, like for Barcelona and for Dallas, as probably you will know in the near future. We are co-located with the business unit. We are in the same building because we need to learn from the business so we can operate better serving them. And as we learn from them, they learn from us how to shift their way of thinking, knowing that there's apart from their normal playbook, which is successful one, there's other place there, or maybe there's a different playbook if you re-engineer a process that will make them more successful. And successful mean talent delivering their objectives by feeling that they are obtaining a high performing, result.
So how do you create that connection between the innovation, the hub, and the business? So in my experience, I worked at a company once where the business was in, a tall, multi-story tall building, and they put all the IT across the street in its own separate building, right? And we had the most beautiful building. We had the new innovative building. There was open workspaces. It was gorgeous. But it was interesting, the actual physical separation between the business and the IT team ended up creating long-term separation, right? Between the innovation that was happening in IT, not meeting IT business priorities. So I love that you've integrated these together in physical space, but how do you make sure as individuals, and particularly like as a data science team, that you're connected, understanding those business needs and serving those business needs to, well, at the end of the day, really serve the customer, right?
Well, it's a journey, right? This is not something that happens from day one. Imagine in the case of the data scientist that is coming from a different company, which may be in a different sector, there's a landing situation where what is working for a CPG, what is working for complex and successful business like Pepsi, right? So there's a landing. But as you know, data scientists are connected to the use case. We need to understand, what are the operational KPIs, metrics, right? What is the process? What is the assist? Right? I'll give you an example. If a user needs to get offline information somewhere to make a decision, if you understand that, your first question is, okay, it's offline, but is there a store somewhere? Is a way to make it available? So the data science in itself, if it's in delivery, is by default connected to the business. So in the short term, that happens, right? What is the long-term move? And that's why the hubs become important. It's because we have connection to the business, not only on delivery, but on ideation, on expanding the network, people knowing someone that works in commercial and the revenue management, someone that works in a factory, in a plant, in a warehouse. These people are getting exposed in different ways with things that we call connection programs that they gather in a lunch and they share, they ideate together. These are the things that the hubs allow us to do, and people are super engaged. Think about the hubs have a massive, especially the Barcelona one, has a massive diversity, and diversity not only on gender or nationalities, but on backgrounds, right? And how people were educated and what they experienced. So when they come here, probably they're coming from a CPG doing finance and end up doing in this CPG commercial. So they also start cross-pollinating themselves and then of course with the business. So coming back to your question, it's critical for a data scientist to understand who we are serving. It's true that I'm going to give you a term, a demand forecast problem can be similar to a retailer or an aerospace and defense company, right? On the high level definition, but on the precise level 5 design is totally different. So maybe a modeling concept can work here, but not here. Maybe the data you used to have is totally different here. So for us, it's highly important to understand what we're trying to solve.
So let's say I'm an individual who, hey, I want to work at the PepsiCo digital hub in Barcelona or Dallas, right? And when I've fallen in love with your leadership, I'm a data scientist. What are those ideal skills that you feel a data scientist in 2023 needs to have? What we've seen the Venn diagrams, right? A little bit math, a little bit, computer skills, communication. But in your definition of someone who leads and is head of data science, what does the ideal data scientist look like?
I'll give you my personal definition. So I hope, your viewers can disconstruct that and build their own and, give us feedback. But for me, yes, the unicorn, let's call it unicorn, right? But they are there, right? And they're always on the build. 4 key components. One, in our case, we need to understand Pepsi. The second one, we need to understand the use cases that we're solving, right? We need to understand what we are solving. The final one, which everyone used to, we need to know methodology and technology. Right? Doesn't need to be the state of the art. State of the art for curiosity reasons. Everyone has done IoT, Arduino things at home, or you probably have something connected somewhere that you have done yourself. That's our curiosity. We have tried the latest deep learning model in a small, nano device, from NVIDIA. We have done, but we need to be practical. So when we talk about methodology at enterprise level or technology, we need to think scale, and support systems, level 3 support, things like that, right? So understanding methodology and technology, key because it's our job description, right? And the last one, which most of us sometimes put us, I will learn that, or it's not important because people are sometimes pursuing distinguished engineer positions, right? Or be a thought leader in specific topics, communication skills. Communication skill for me is a broad term for emotional intelligence, for empathy, right? If you are coming, in our case, with a digital transformation and I have this eagerness to show value, right? If I'm not empathic, I'm using words from someone from the company that taught me this, right? So most of my comments are, I'm speaking for what I learned from others, right? It's, empathy. You're bringing a change. You need to be empathic to the user. How that language adoption can be over steps, or they are actually the ambassadors of that adoption. And this comes with good communication skills from. Those are the 4, not easy, always reinventing, as you have said, this iteration, but those are the 4 that I would see as important.
I think a lot of individuals combine resources for tools and methodologies. Where I find it's much harder is what you mentioned, and I love it, the use cases, right? Understanding the problem, the use cases, and then communication skills. If someone's looking to get better in those 2 areas, do you have any recommendations for either resources or things to do to start to improve what some may call those softer skills, but in my opinion, those are harder to get than the actual hard skills? Hey, what do you use to improve in those areas, or tips for individuals?
I think that's a good question, and I'm gonna probably reply in a bad way because it's a question that I still looking my own way because, as you mentioned, it's hard. I think one of the important things, and some companies have it, right? This concept of a coach, right? These are sometimes embedded in an HR partner. Doesn't need to be a coach, but someone that understands very well conflicts, communication, we have those in PepsiCo, right? We have this, we have our good, learning facility over these type of skills. Outside, I always go first to, and even a lab, for me, Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, all those places have someone that has said something. There's always good material on the journals from business, you have Harvard Business Review. I understand this high level, but for me, it is your own, own to breach, Uh, I was, I give you a personal thing, I started learning dancing to play better basketball, right? I was, because from a movement perspective, right? So sometimes maybe to get better communication is going to the theater, going for a salsa class, playing a sport, take you out of, and this is easy to say, what we call comfort zone. No. And that's where you say something perfect for me. Curiosity is a big driver for us, right? Go to something that you think is lateral to your everyday, right? And maybe that's where you get the skill sets, even in a cooking class, right? Maybe that skill sets are more grown outside our workplace, and then we bring them into this. I don't know what you think, but that's the only my answer on that aspect.
I completely agree. I remember when I was leading a data science team and we were having issues getting projects delivered on time. There was terrible handoffs between the data engineering team and the business analysts. Everyone was missing the handoff. And I had the opportunity to go into a kitchen and sit in the kitchen and eat while they were making, multiple 5-course meals. And it was flawless, right? Everyone had a role. Everyone knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And I was able to take that experience and update our process for how the data science team ran. And it made it run so much more smooth, right? Now, I should have charged that meal probably to my company, but it was one of those experiences that was, had nothing to do with data science, had nothing to do with technology. It was something that I was just interested in and curious about, as you mentioned, right? Follow your bliss. And who knows how you will bring that experience back into your work, right? And that going back to what you said originally, you like to find people who have these diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences. I love that you are learning. I've never thought of like learning to dance to improve basketball, but now I can see the correlations there. I think there's so much opportunity to.
That's to be fair. I don't dance well and I play great basketball, but at least I have those checkbox part, But yeah.
Yes, I think it just opens up a lot of opportunities for individuals. So in terms of data science work at PepsiCo, what are some of the types of problems that you work on today? I know you mentioned demand forecasting models. What are the types of problems someone would work on if they came into PepsiCo?
So our team, is connected to, let's call it big buckets of work, right? We have consumer engagement, marketing, omni-channel, and selling execution, suggested order, understanding the benefit driven by media spend, in our sales, understanding better the consumer, understanding better, what we need to do within a store. And, you understand that from an assortment perspective, going to a warehouse and optimize certain processes there. That's my delivery. You have many things that we are shipping. For us, it's really important to understand that we are not building analytic solutions. We are building digital solutions. So we are trying to, as a holistic team, strategy and transformation is understand the daily line of, right, a process and come up with sometimes a functional solution, or sometimes like a big program that we have is called integrated business planning, which is a cross-functional one, which affects both supply chain, commercial, finance, to have a joint way to do planning, come up with one plan, a business unit, right? Execute it, find the risks, the opportunities, and close it together. So all those things, you sound like this is a business thing. Yeah, it's a business thing. Below that is a prediction model, an optimization, a segmentation. When we are getting better, we start holding human decisions, right? In this system, you have a recommendation. The ambition for us is, as we are well connected to the business process and you start elevating the decision-making process because you are closing the gap, right? If I come with a dashboard with a scripted information, the decision is here. The human drive knowledge closes the gap. As you are having more data available, as you understand better the process, and this become less offline and more dynamics that are managed within a platform, within an application, you start to close that gap. So the system is better equipped to support a human decision. And you allow that user to focus on the high value things with exception, having the power to say, no, I will write off this, right? You start having the sense of what you call, intelligent automation. You go into that layer. You remember the classical consulting, value, complexity, right? You start grabbing that areas where the user is totally empowered and supported to make decisions, where the tribe knowledge is scattered around the organization, supporting the knowledge of a 20-year-old planner is available to a first-year planner to make the right decision. That's the ambition when PepsiCo said, I want to be an intelligent company. I want to move to practice. It's also empowering the talent to be, more assertive on their decisions. It's all connected. We're just a small piece, a good one, an important one, but of overall change.
I really want to double click into what you said there and make sure our audience heard that it's not an analytic solution or an AI solution. I know AI right now is so very shiny and so much hype, but there's so much more to it. I love what you said. It's a digital solution and you're one component of an overall team. And I think, when I first got into data science, it was, as you mentioned, the unicorn. It was kind of the high priestess. I felt many working in the space had like a little chip on their shoulder to have made it into the space. But those solutions alone aren't anything unless they're part of the whole of the team, right? And those individuals who have that industry knowledge, the business acumen have so much to offer. I think it's just important for all of us to remember that we are one piece of the whole that make it. So one of the things I know that's important as a part of the whole at PepsiCo in your team, you've mentioned it a couple times, is just how important diversity is in building these analytical solutions. Can you just talk a little bit more about why you feel this is essential as a component of the solution?
So let me enter into the component, right? Let's call it intelligent system, analytic component, AI, AI system. As you build that, we know typical biases, right? You have the developer bias that is probably coming from a sector, from a different, industry, a different company, have done this before, which, by repetition, you start creating, the success bias, right? You have always done it like this. So, then you have the stakeholder bias, especially if you're doing a shift of how that person should operate. You have, but this is always been the reason or the driver of or my lever, right? So these are biases that are there when you build something. Diversity has many aspects, right? Help us hedge with that. If you don't have a process, right? When you have a process, you build diversity into the process, so it's replicable in places where you don't have diversity. So diversity has a principle of unbiasing the biases that are there, and we are not able to recognize ourselves because we all have them, and we are improving ourselves, But again, sometimes there's always blind spots, and it's a way to hedge that, either by nationalities, because from some different cultures, either by backgrounds, because some study marine biology, other one software engineer, other one sociology, right? Because come from different industries, because they have different gender. Those are hedges to come up with solutions that overall try to be unbiased. And when you have the process, like we have in PepsiCo, we have a bias mitigation framework, right, to work on this, then it's more easy because you can deploy this in places that you have diversity, and at least it's a proxy to that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more that diversity really makes the whole strong. It reminds me of sequoia trees in California. So I don't know if you have had the opportunity. The sequoia trees live over
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of years. They're massive, right? And I got to see them and I was so interested in like, how did they do this, right? How did they go so strong and stand the test of time, right? And what I come to find out is they have an integrated root system and share resources between one another. And because of this integration with one another and the ability to share resources, when one is weak, another is strong. As you mentioned, we may have unconscious bias ourselves, and we need those others to refine us, to provide a new way of thinking. And so I love diverse teams because I think that the stronger our teams are, or the more diverse they are, so that hopefully one day we can all grow into be those sequoia trees that I do love so much.
We will.
Yes. Well, Hassan, this has been a fantastic time. I do love to ask people just a few rapid fire questions. So are you ready for a few rapid fire questions?
I hope I will be better at the answers. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Happiness is fill in the blank.
It's super personal. So I'm going to say, for me, happiness is seeing my kids grow and see how they develop themselves in the way that they want. But there's such joy for me seeing how they grow and come out with different things, different line of thoughts. So that would be my definition of happiness, seeing them grow.
In the next 5 years, I hope to.
One is be healthy and happy.
Yeah.
The other one is that we continue transforming the company all together. In and continue making the company successful. So that's my 5-year goal for me in the company.
But you have some good work-life balance. Go a little personal, a little work.
It's for me, it's when things are good, and reaching, it's hard to separate, it's, my kids, so personal story, my previous company, my kids come to the office, and my kids are part of for me it was important, and it's important that they know with who I work. That's a blend that for me has been successful.
Integrated life. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, the last question to me, curiosity is.
I think I already gave you the answer. It's a massive driving force. A one that people live on the side, but because of the phrase, curiosity killed the cat, right? I think it's a massive driving force, and I hope, your work and the work of others in your institution are driving that in many colleagues that want to reskill or upskill or shift careers.
Well, what a great way to end this episode. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I want to sign up to be part of the data science team of PepsiCo. So hopefully, we'll be there soon. Any last words before we wrap up today?
I hope we get a lot of feedback and connections from this podcast, and hope to see you in Barcelona with your team and enjoy a good session of your organization with us.
That's great. Well, again, thank you to our listeners. Remember to stay curious and keep learning, and we will catch you next time on the Data Bytes podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Data Bytes podcast. If you're looking for more resources to further your data career or find your tribe, we encourage you to become a member at womenindata.org. See you on the other side.